from Spirited Art. Today we're going to be painting this fun giraffe painting. We have 3 rules here at Spirited Art. The first is this is totally your painting. So if you want to change the background color or change the designs in the background, that's totally up to you. Second rule, don't drink your paint water. It's going to get gross. You do need a cup of water to rinse your brushes, but don't drink it. Third rule, keep your brushes in your water when you're not using them. This is acrylic paint, so it does dry very quickly. It'll dry in your brushes too. It also will dry on your canvas, which is great because if you do something that you don't love, just wait for it to dry and you can paint right over top. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is separate our mixing plates. We're going to mix our paint with the big brush. So take that white-handled brush if you have one, get some of the water out and tap it on your napkin. We're going to start with a big scoop of green and about a half scoop of white, maybe less. Mix those in a small circle, pushing the paint to the center of the pile. You want to keep it as small as possible so you don't paint your plate and so you have lots of color to paint on the canvas. You're going to go outside your giraffe. You can paint the whole background just outside the giraffe. If you want to outline the giraffe with your little brush first, you can certainly do that. I'm trying to paint faster than you so that this video doesn't get too long. If you need to stop it so that you can catch up and finish the same part of the painting that I'm working on, then go ahead and do that. Otherwise, I'm just going to fill in this background very quickly. If you have wrapped canvas from our studio or one that maybe you got from somewhere else, you can also paint the edges because that makes it nice when you hang it up. It's like a frame. You can paint it the same color that you paint the front, or you can choose a different color and paint that all the way around the edge. If you have any blobs as you're going along, make sure you smooth them out. Take the brush over top. Just smooth out that paint and you can push it into a new space on the canvas. Also, you always want to pull the bristles down. You never want to push the bristles. You shouldn't be able to hear them painting on the canvas. If you do, that means that you either need a little more paint or maybe you're pushing them the wrong direction. Always pull the bristles along with you. Sometimes you might have to change how your wrist is turned. I'm going right around his face. Also, if you have any brush strokes in the back of your painting, you can use long strokes, either side to side or up and down, to get rid of those. When you're all done with your green, then you can rinse your brush really well. We're changing colors. So you want to touch the bottom of your cup and stir really well, and that opens up the bristles and all that paint will come out. Even if your water's green, that's okay, as long as there's not any paint left in your bristles. And you want to tap it on your napkin to make sure that it's just the water and not a ton of paint. I'm actually going to rinse one more time because that kind of came out pretty green. Get a little of the water outside the top of the cup, on the top of the cup, and then on your napkin. Okay, the next color we're going to do is taking this spicy mustard. It's also called raw sienna, with a little hint of white, just a little bit on the tip of your brush. You can mix that around, or if you want it to be a little darker, you can take the spicy mustard or raw sienna straight from your plate, and you're going to go ahead and fill in the neck of the giraffe and the face of the giraffe. Don't fill in his nose. Be careful on this edge, you might pick up some green. If you do, go ahead and rinse your brush right away. I'm going to do his face. If you have a stencil from us, you might have eyes that are stenciled penciled in the middle of his face. Don't worry about painting around them. You can go ahead and paint over them. You may be able to see the pencil through the color that we put on, or they are just ovals and we'll draw them on later. The other place that we're going to put this color is on the edge of the ears. If you go into the center of the ear a little bit, don't worry. That color is going to be the same color, just with a little more white added in, and it'll go right over top of this. All right, so now that we have that color on there, we're going to go ahead and take another scoop of white, add it to what you still have on your plate, and mix that in. This is going to be that light sandy color that's on the nose, the inner ear, and also on those little things at the top of his head. All right, nose first. If it's not light enough, you can add some more white to it. I'm calling this like a light cream, like a creamy or a light sand color. Got a little bit of green there. Now, if you feel more comfortable, you can actually take your little brush to fill in those guys at the top of his head. I think that's probably a wise choice because the big brush would be a little bit hard to maneuver in this space. If you look up close, you can see that I got a little bit of green in the top here. If your background is not dry and you have a hair dryer nearby, you can actually use that to dry your background before you start some of this. Okay, when you're done with that color, I'm going to rinse my brush, and I'm going to take my big brush because we're going to mix the color. Take your big brush, clean it out. We're going to take a big scoop of that reddish brown color. It's called burnt sienna. I'm going to take a scoop of that and just a little tip of white. I'm just adding the white so that it isn't real streaky when I put it on. I could add a little bit more white if I wanted to, but this looks like a good color. This is going to be the hair. If you want to use your little brush to add this on, that's totally fine. If you're using your big brush, you're going to need to turn it gently as you come down his neck. If you go into the green a little bit, that's totally fine. All right. The hair also is right up top, right next to his ear too. If you want to use your little brush to get in these smaller spaces, that might be a good idea. If your color comes out a little bit streaky, you can add another coat on top. Alrighty. Last thing we're going to do with this color is what? Add his spots. Every giraffe has its own unique pattern of spots. Alright, I'm going to put one right under his nose. And again, this might look a little bit streaky, my first coat. You can absolutely put a second coat on to make it look a little more solid. But let's just get the shape of them on there right now. I'm going to put another one on the side of his neck. This could be any shape you want. It doesn't have to look like this. One more on this side. Also, if you'd like to draw these with the little brush and then fill them in with the big brush, that might be a good idea too. We're gonna add some to his face. If you have your own paints at home and you have a little bit of a dark brown color, you could add it into this red brown, and that would be a pretty color for these spots too. One on the side of his face, and maybe one more right by his nose. Okay, I've got them on. I'm gonna go over some of them with a little bit more paint just to make them a little more solid in color. If you wanna add some texture, you can use some smaller brush strokes like this, kind of tapping at the canvas. Or you can also use your little brush to do that. Same thing. It'll give it a little more texture. Sometimes it's helpful to stand back from your painting and just see what you might need. I'm gonna take my little brush and I'm gonna fill in a little bit more of this color in some of those smaller spaces. Right up here in between. Okay, I think I'm ready for the eyes, some highlights, and then we'll work again on the background. So the eyes are gonna be black. I'm just gonna use black straight from my palette, and if you painted over those eyes, they're just gonna be ovals, okay? When you're using black, you wanna make sure that your brush is dry. I don't want any black drips coming down my canvas. So make sure those bristles are dry, and you're gonna draw 2 ovals. It's easier to make them bigger, so don't draw them too big. It's better if you draw them small, and then you can add to them a little bit. All right, and then 2 little nostrils. They're kind of like curved lines, like little parentheses, or half circles. Those are his nostrils. All right, I'm gonna add some highlights. When I do highlights, I want them to be very light. I'm barely touching the canvas. I'm gonna rinse. I'm gonna put some of those brown spots in his ears, because I forgot to do that. So I'm gonna use that mixed brown color that we have. Roll my brush as I'm coming out, and I'm gonna put some spots in the ears. Here and there. Again, I'll probably go over those with a little more paint. Okay. All right, I'm ready to do some work in the background. I'm gonna let this dry before I put the highlights in the hair, but I'm gonna do these circles. A couple ways to draw a circle. One is you could just put your brush on the canvas and go straight around. Okay, some people like to draw the letter C and then close the circle. You can make them different sizes to add variety. You want to add about 3 in each color. So I'm going to rinse my brush now that I have the brown ones on. I'm not sure if my background is completely dry yet. Yours should be if you're working a little more slowly than I am. This light color, I'm going to make some more circles. Different sizes. You can also make some that are right up against your giraffe, kind of like he's in front of the other part of that circle. And same thing with going off the edge. If you want to put one at the bottom, maybe going off the edge. That got a little green in it. I'll have to come back to that one. All right, and the last color I'm gonna do is that spicy mustard that just had a little bit of white in it, so it's much darker than the color I just used. You probably want to re-dip after every circle, unless it's a real small one. I am picking up some green in my brush because my background's not completely dry yet. Hopefully you'll avoid that. Oops. Okay, I'm ready to use this color that has mostly the spicy mustard. I need to make a little bit more of it, and a little bit of white. I'm gonna add some brushiness to the hair on the neck. And they're really just little dash marks coming out from the neck of the giraffe towards the outside edge. Re-dip. You can make them a little bit wavy if you want to, or you can kind of bring them straight across. Don't forget to add a few in the hair that's on top of his head. And if you want, you can go back and add in some more little strokes in between. They can be as close or as far away from each other as you like. Once you have that light color on too, if you want to go back and use some of the straight raw sienna, you totally can do that. It'll give it a nice change in color all the way down. Okay, I think the last thing is just to put some black highlights on some of my circles. Actually, I'm gonna put one more. I need something right here. I'm gonna rinse, and again, because I'm using black, I'm gonna make sure that my brush, my bristles are dry before I use black. All right, just the tip, and I'm using real light pressure. Start here. Along the inner edge of some of these circles. Mine are looking kind of wet right now, so you may want to wait a little bit until yours dry to put these highlights on. And some of my circles, as you can see, need an extra coat of their paint color. So once the first coat dries, you can add another coat right on top. All right, I think we're all set. Whites of the eyes. That's the last thing. Use the back of your little brush. Dip your little brush into the paint. All you're gonna do is touch the canvas where you want the eyes. One, I like to re-dip after every time, although you might be able to get both eyes out of one dip. You can twist the little brush a little bit if you want to. And then you can sign it and it's all finished. I hope you enjoyed our giraffe painting.